1 billion learners with the learning that they need most. And as I said, in the context of today's environment, we're asking ourselves, what is that learning? Is it topics such as digital transformation? Is it skills and reskilling? Or are there other aspects to the modern workplace that people need some help with? I shall pass the reins now over to Lauren and Alex. Perhaps, Lauren, you would like to start by saying hello.
Good morning. Good morning to everyone, wherever it is that you're joining. I actually would, I'd like to pass over to Alex to welcome and to start, and I'll sort of follow your lead and we'll keep going. But I'm offering my morning gratitude to everybody and welcoming everyone as you come into the chat as well. Alex.
Thank you, Lauren, and hello, everyone. It's lovely to see so many names joining, and the number's still ticking up as well. So if you've just joined, we're only just starting now. Here today to talk about really important topics to all of us, because there is a universal connector from everyone here in that we're all human beings, and really exploring what that means for us and our learning could never probably be a better time than right now. So one of the ways it would just be really lovely to hear from everybody this morning in the chat. Just how are you doing? Share something that's going on, perhaps that's going well for you right now in some aspect of your life, whether it be work or beyond, and perhaps where you're calling in from. It would be lovely to see the breadth and reach that we have in the group here today. So I'm dialing in from Brighton in the UK, and things are going well this morning. We've been up very early with my kids wrapping presents for Secret Santas at school. So that was my fun thing this morning that kind of cut through an awful lot of other stuff going on. So what's going on for everyone here today? So where are you dialing in from? And share something about what's happening for you this morning. Is there anything that's going well for you today?
And had a flock of redwings just landed in my garden. Oh my goodness, my heart, Diane. New Forest. I don't know where that is, but I do love a good forest.
That's nice. And oh, Claire, you've just done a morning run. That's good. You get to feel smug all day now. Oh, and Pilates class. Wow, there's lots of active people here, feeling a buzz. Oh, we have puppies joining us too. Oh no, deciding to sleep. Okay. I'm sure he'll wake up soon.
Puppy training? Oh no, Carol. This is a good thing it's not a Zoom call because I would be very distracted by a cute little puppy. Oh, look at all of this.
Yeah.
Helmut joining us from Vienna, and it's snowing. How romantic that must look.
And Dinesh from South Africa, thank you for dialing in. And we have someone from Johannesburg as well, and Ukraine. This is a fantastic spread.
Hyderabad, wonderful. This is phenomenal.
Good. Well, I hope it shows the breadth of reach we have in terms of this important topic, really. As I said, there is a human connector for all of us here today. And really excited to be talking with Lauren and David about what that means for the learning landscape, but really checking in, I guess, firstly with how everyone is. And it's great to hear some good positive vibes coming through this morning. Lauren, did you want to move forward into our session today?
I'd love to. What I love about what just came up in the chat, besides the fact that we've spanned the globe this morning, and that just, it bursts my heart to know that we've just got, such a global presence in a virtual space here today. And as we sort of move through our time here together, I definitely welcome you that this isn't just a conversation between myself and Alex and David. This is a conversation with us all. We are here to learn. We are here to share. We are here to grow. I did say the word learn. As a scientist, though, I'm going to tell you, you're not going to learn anything. We want to tickle your curiosity. I want to take you on a journey where we can explore a few things about, how we are as humans, how, as a scientist and a translator of the science, I'm here to answer all of the questions that pertain to our brains and take you through some of those practical applications of what we can do and how we're going to navigate. So to that sort of sense, it's really interesting. Obviously, we've had quite the couple of years as we go into the new year, and as we end this one, and we look towards the future. And in the chat, I'm just so curious. We've all experienced so many things throughout our lives, and obviously, again, over the course of the last couple of years. But what does that mean? If I said fill in the blank and put that in the chat, fill in this blank. Being a human means. And maybe while you're doing that, I'm going to go to Alex first and be like, Alex, when you hear, I know you and I, Alex and I, for everyone who's watching, Alex and I have just, become instant best friends over the course of this. And we've talked about this, but, I think every moment that we have, that we learn something new and we experience something, our gorgeous brains are networking those experiences to create a new structure of how we view and see the world. So Alex, I mean, what does that actually mean? Like, I haven't even answered the question myself, but what does that mean to you? Oh, are you on mute? Because I cannot hear you, darling.
It's for you, Lauren. Thank you. So, every time I hear this question, I often, think about it with a different lens. And I think that's the uniqueness of being human, is that our consciousness and of our surroundings and our experience all the time means that it constantly changes our view of the world, our presence here. And for me, being a human is about really really accepting that and knowing that we offer something unique and wonderful and brilliant in this world. I think so many times, particularly even down the learning route, but it's a typical kind of traditional route, even in psychology, is to kind of find out what's wrong with us. And in order to grow, is about fixing what's wrong and closing the gap and finding the weakness. And actually, as a positive psychologist, we focus on the fact that we're already unique and wonderful, brilliant human beings exactly as we are. And our growth comes from really focusing in on what it is we're wonderful at and really focusing more on that. We have more opportunity for growth in our areas of strength than we do in fixing our weaknesses. They'll only ever get us to average. But those things that we've done, that we do really well uniquely, and the combination of those that comes from our entire complex life and unique life experience from when we're 0 to around about 17, that is who we are as a human being, and that's how we navigate our world. And the more that we can understand that and own it and bring that to the world that we're experiencing, the better we can be to realize our opportunity in the world, to grow ourselves, grow with others, and to grow the opportunity to have a positive impact on everyone around us and the planet too. So for me, it's quite a huge answer, but it's about tapping into the who. Who am I as a unique individual on this planet with all the other billions of people that are out there? What is it that I really bring to this world, and what can I do that can really make a difference? That's my answer today. It's definitely a little different than the last one. How about you, Lauren?
Well, I'm going to turn the attention to everybody else, and because I've been monitoring, I'm just looking at what everyone's saying, and we've got these beautiful Craig of evolving. Yes. You're constantly learning, whether you know it or not. It's what we are designed, literally what we are physically designed to do. So we are constantly evolving. Karina, being emotional. Yes, emotions and feelings. We are, emotions, what most people don't know, and I'll share with you this little science drop here. Emotions are nothing more than neurochemistry. They're chemicals in your brain that get released in certain chemical cocktails that allow you to feel. And the feelings are those tangible, conscious experiences of our emotions. So, it's wonderful. Yes, we are emotional beings. We are thinking beings. We've got engagement. We have collaboration, showing kindness. Everything that you've put in here, empathy, understanding, everything that you've contributed in the chat is 100% where I would say is my definition lies as well. But I'm going to add one more thing. And being human also means that we experience and we feel things that we don't necessarily want to feel. We have the vulnerability, we have the discomfort, and learning does not happen without that. It means change. It means that we are going sometimes against a very natural, embedded, habitual instinct in us. And I think, we have to acknowledge that it's not always easy, is it? It's really not always that easy. But, I always like to say, for those who do know me, so you've got to get through the moments of grr to get to the moments of yar. And in a pirate's world, yar stands for you are really ready, and you will know when those moments happen. So thank you so much for everyone who's sharing in the chat, because a lot of what you're also sharing is what we need to discuss about today. We need to discuss about sometimes we don't know how to learn these human skills yet. And that's where we're going to take this conversation. We're going to keep going, and to give ourselves that grain of salt to allow ourselves to be learning humans who need the time to acquire these skills. So question to everybody, but granted, we're in a very interesting time in our history, but does it strike, and just in the chat, yes or no, but does it strike anybody else as sort of curious that the skills that we most need right now are those which make us that little bit more human? And I'll invite Alex, if you want to speak to that while we see things come up in the chat. David, if you have anything to contribute, your knowledge and your experiences are always welcome as well. I'm going to mute myself just for a moment if either one of you want to have an exchange.
Yeah, I can certainly jump in terms of skills, and I think just before kind of going into what those really are, there's something here about uncovering what's already within us. So yes, there's the learning of who we are and the acceptance, and sometimes there's the tapping into the subconscious and recognizing of who we are and realizing what we are and who we are, that gets kind of overcome and overlooked by the day-to-day busyness that we have around our lives and everything that everyone else wants from us. When our time is almost like it becomes less of our own, we become what everyone else needs us to be in lots of different ways, and you can lose track of who it is that you are and what you do really well and what you bring. And I think there's a centering there of kind of uncovering and making sure that you are tapping into those pieces that's very, very important to recognize in order to harness them. And it's that curiosity of what more is there in me and what's the deeper capacity. And in terms of skills, I often look to the emotional intelligence framework, which is well known and kind of long standing. We develop our emotional intelligence throughout our whole lives. Just naturally through our life challenges, we become more aware of ourselves from how we respond to different things and how people respond to us, as well as our awareness of others, as well as how we manage ourselves in those situations and our relationships with other people. So it's a really nice kind of framework to think about. And if we were thinking about the skills that humans need using that framework, there are some kind of more up-to-date things, and I think this is tapping into what Lauren was suggesting here about right now, these human skills are more valuable than ever. And so there's this piece here, not just about self-awareness, but authenticity. So being who we are, being able to confidently contribute what we can contribute as a unique individual is a piece there. So there's a skill around being really authentic, helping people know who we are and staying true to that so that people get a consistent picture of who you are and able to work with you in that way to get the best from you and for people to feel more comfortable being who they are. There's a piece there as well around inclusivity and being really curious about our differences with others, because as we become more certain of ourselves, it's easy to imagine that others think the same way, and we just don't. We're so unique, and I think we often forget our uniqueness, and we like to be similar to others, and we assume that more is similar than actually is similar with others. So there's that piece around curiosity in terms of really thinking about what the differences are between us and other people and their experiences and why they're bringing something unique, as well as that piece around remaining open in challenge. So when challenges hit us, and they do on a regular basis, and with the amount of change going on in the world right now, we are hit with challenge all the time. So how can we ensure that we remain open to emergence in those situations? And I think that's a really interesting skill for resilience, is that situation whereby we might know what we would do in a previous scenario when a challenge comes up, but actually this is different and this is new and this is not the same challenge. So how do we remain open to emerging concepts, ideas, innovation, creativity in those moments when we know what to do? We can go into a mode where we can deliver and execute on something. So that openness to challenge, as well as our ability to really tap into and know when we've had a meaningful human connection. We can all talk to people and have a coffee with them online or face-to-face if we can, And we can ask people about their days, and we can ask people about their families and how work's going. And we all know the difference between just a conversation and a meaningful human connection. And it's our humanness that taps into that. It's the intuition, wisdom, and experience of being a human being on this planet that we know, if we ask ourselves that question, was that really a meaningful human connection? And it's about really keeping that switch switched on, really understanding that we can be really human and tap into something unique and meaningful with people in our relationships if we really want to, and we can attend to it. Just bringing it to the forefront of our attention. So for me, it's those 4 skills: the authenticity with skill, the curiosity for other people's authenticity, the ability to remain open in challenge, and the ability to really notice what's a meaningful human connection. Those things for me are kind of 4 kind of top skills that help us with our emotional intelligence journey anyway, to really be in the moment for learning and for life and for evolution.
Yeah, David, please go respond, and I'm going to go to the
David,
chat afterwards.
Yeah, Alex, you've been pioneering and talking about humanizing the workplace for years and years, and you've had first-hand experience on the ground, and I'm echoing the comments in the chat as well. It strikes me as strange that human skills haven't been center to, workplace development and how to make rounded individuals. And all of a sudden, it is strange to me that organizations are being the one that's paying for their employees to understand themselves first and foremost as a human being before they can bring their true authentic self to work. And I'm curious as to why is that changed? Why, yes, I understand there's a hybrid need and we're all more connected, but in your experience, why is that changed? And why are people taking it more seriously now?
It's really interesting you say that, David. Actually, it's a great question, and I think this is one that I know Lauren has got some perspectives on too. From my experience working in organizations, particularly in large scale or global organizations, it is driven by efficiency, that we need to have a process that reduces our cognitive overload. So if we can have a process that helps us process our people in a certain way that feels efficient, where people don't have to expend any extra energy thinking about it or considering the different nuances of every single unique individual within that picture, and we can just kind of treat people in a certain way and allow some kind of, gray areas around that, it's going to be easier for the organization in the long run, apparently. And I think what the pandemic and all the changes over the last couple of years has done is completely kind of explode that into a situation where those just don't simply work anymore. They don't work in terms of the content that people are needing to deal with. They don't work in terms of the new ways of working, where people are completely dispersed and not able to tap into nonverbal communication around them, with people in the room all the time. And it has totally opened up our new channels for interacting with people in a way that demands a human response, because it demands people to think more about what it is. And I think that's one of the right reasons why everyone's so exhausted, tired. And even, with the latest news yesterday, certainly in the UK, it's constant change. It's constant thinking about, okay, now what? Okay, now what? And there is this piece about making sure that we are able to recognize our cognitive capacity and manage that to allow ourselves to learn in those scenarios. And I know that that's very tied into Lauren's thinking around, how can we make sure that we have the right space in our brains to be the functioning humans?
So it's completely normal for me to feel exhausted being a human being right now. Because as much as I engage with these topics, it is emotionally and it's overwhelming and draining. And I know this is Lauren's baby, so I think that's a nice cue for you, Lauren.
It is.
I think more than anything, and I'm going to take this back to around 6 years ago, before I had even acknowledged the existence of my own brain, and before I just started, the discovery and the studies and the whatnot, and the amount that I have learned on a functional level, on a scientific level was one thing, but when you now understand what does energy mean in the brain, what are chemicals that produce these tangible emotions, what are these things that are consciously making us a human, but are being so directed by the things that we just cannot see. And I got to say, one of the most profound moments for me in discovering my own operational system was those I had to just keep asking myself, like, how did I not know this? Oh my God, how did I not know this? And when we ask ourselves that, and then we go into a world of curiosity, which takes us into learning, and chase that into a place where we go, okay, how did I not know this too? Oh gosh, now I need to know this. And now I know how to do something. This is the essence of human learning. So let's talk about energy just for a brief moment, because what David and what Alex are saying, what all of us have been experiencing, beyond decision fatigue, we've all been, definitely dealing with decision fatigue. The brain is a prediction-making machine. And when it is in a place where it is in constant activity and under stress and trying to figure out what comes next, yes, we are going to exert more energy. Now, emotional releases, as we know, sometimes, in the chat, you can say, yep, that's me, is if you've had like that really wonderful cry sometimes, and at the end of it, you feel really good, but you're exhausted. There are actual chemistries that come out in your tears, which is why it can feel very exhausting to have that really good cry. When it comes to energy in the brain, as Alex was saying, is we've only got so much, right? Our brains are constantly running. Now, what's called the resting state. Now, this is really, really interesting. Most people don't know this. The cells in your brains, if you think about a magnet, like negative and positive, we're always resting in a negative state, and we're waiting for those moments to go into a positive state when we have to do something. I just saw David pick up his glass of water. His brain just went, I need to exert some energy to tell my hand to go pick up that water, to get it to my mouth and to swallow. And our brain is constantly doing this. Now, the currency is our energy. Our brains are incredibly powerful, but the currency is energy, and that's the price that we pay. So learning how to be aware in the moment of what it is that we're giving our attention to, because attention is the mechanism to our focus. Okay, I'm going to repeat that because this is really, really important. Attention is the mechanism to focus. We have not one, not two, not three. I think they've discovered nearly 7 now attentional networks in the brain, which allow us to focus on different things at different times. I've been repeating this as we go through different webinars and seminars, but through your day, if you want to conserve some energy, the best way that you can do it, especially when you're trying to focus in and get some work done, is to just pause and stop and ask yourself, where is my attention? Because where my attention is what I'm going to be giving my focus to. So if I have a podcast going on in the background, if I have a chat box going up, if my team is trying to hit me on Slack, if I'm trying to send an email at the same time, I am just stretched in so many different directions. So I need to have the awareness to stop myself throughout the day and go, where's my attention? Is that what I need to be focusing on? And in that, I know it sounds really simple, but because our worlds move so quickly, I guarantee you that even as we're on this time here together, there's a handful of you who have already looked at your calendars going, when's my next meeting? What am I going to have for lunch? You're in the future when we need to be in the present. And I actually want to, you know what, Alex, I'm going to go into a little meta activity. Are you okay with that? Yeah? Okay. In the chat, if you just, let's just do a little scientific experimentation here, if you'll indulge me, if you will. In the chat, tell me something, tell all of us something that you are amazing at. And it doesn't have to be, I'm amazing at my job. It could be absolutely anything. When I answer this question, the first thing that always comes to mind, and I told David this the other day, and I know he's going to laugh at this, I'm really amazing at making a grilled cheese sandwich. And I'm not just talking like just a normal grilled cheese sandwich, like a double toasted, you've never had a great grilled cheese sandwich. That's my amazing. Charlotte's amazing at knitting. Helen's amazing at puzzles, making people giggle. Jerry, we will be great friends. Amazing at making a decent cup of tea. I love that. Come over oh my gosh, Katarina, opera singing. Not wasting food. Oh, Mia, we need to share a meal together because I always need someone to help finish. I love grilled cheese. Yes. Making Bailey's chocolate ice cream? Hello. Fajitas? Playing the bass guitar? Daniel. Dreaming of the stars, of course, Mr. Hastings. Dancing, gin tasting. Oh, Caleb, gin tasting. You'll have to explain to me later about how this. We're going to have an after party after. I want to hear more about it being amazing at gin tasting. Sleeping, Craig. I love sleeping. It is one of my most favorite things. Alex, what is something that you?
Well,
what's your amazing?
Really,
These are amazing. By
I'm
the way.
really good at being honest. So it can be my downfall, definitely can be overplayed, but like, you know, if someone asks me a question, I really struggle to lie. I'm not a very good liar. So if someone needs to know something, and it's terrible with my kids as well, I'm just not very good at lying. I'm terrible at surprises as a result, obviously, but I can be really honest with people. So when people ask me a question and they really need an honest answer, I'm good at giving an honest answer.
Okay, so first of all, your amazings are amazing. I hope that you all feel exactly what I just feel when I was reading all of these. Okay, let's go to the other side of this. We know what you're amazing at. What is something in the chat again? What is something that you are not so great at? I mean, and I wrote it in my notes because I find it amusing to be epically bad at something. Not just bad, but be epically bad at something. For me, never, ever, ever leave Lauren alone to do any home renovations of any kinds. It's a disaster. I'm horrible. I will put holes in the wall, and then I MacGyver. So I MacGyver things really, really poorly. But the things that you're not so great at that might even find that you're amused at yourself at how bad you are at them. Okay, we got burnt toast, someone no patience. We're admitting that we can't cook. Oh my gosh, putting shelves up. Caleb, yeah. Yvonne, cleaning. Okay, I take great satisfaction in vacuuming, but never ask me to fold a sheet. I am horrendous at cooking. Okay. Oh, relaxing. Okay. Now, overcoming trials and something is not perfect. Ooh, perfection. Not good at Yorkshire puddings either. I feel like that's just for very special people in the world, is to make a very good Yorkshire pudding. And my mother's side of the family is British, so disagree. Parking. Oh, I love parking fails. Those are kind of my favorite things. As long as you don't hit anything. Finishing tasks list, delegating stuff. Okay, this is amazing. Now, there was rhyme and reason behind me asking these things. Why did I ask you what is something that you're amazing at? Why did I ask you what is something that you're epically horrible at? First of all, a little science. First, emotional triggers, right? I'm hoping that as you're watching everybody's amazings and epic fails come up, you're just kind of having a little giggle to yourself and just enjoying the fact that this is the stuff that makes us human. The things of what we're really good at, the things that we're really bad at, and acknowledging that within each other. However, when we look at what you just did, you had to pause in the moment and stop in a very split second. Your brain had to actually think about what it was thinking about. It had to think about what it was thinking about. What am I really good at? What am I really bad at? How do I articulate that? How do I share that? This is a skill. You know, scientifically, theoretically, it's something called metacognition. Metacognition is, in my definition, it is how we become the audience to our own performance. It requires us to be in a present moment, to capture our thoughts so that we can be more self-aware. Now, when we take the theory of metacognition even further, what it allows us to do is it allows us not to only capture our cognitive thoughts, we can also tap into the sensations of our bodies, we can tap into the sensations of our feelings. But the essence of this amazing skill, which does need to be cultivated, we do need to learn it, is that in that self-awareness, what we get to do in the moment is we get to self-assess and we can regulate. So when we practice these and when we train our brains to be in states where we can be present in the moment through things like the exercise of what am I giving my attention to? That's present moment training. Call it mindfulness, call it anything that you will. We don't have to go direct to meditations and 20 minutes of absolute torture trying to sit there and, peace and calm. It doesn't have to be like that, right? When we're training our brains to be in states to recognize and to work with the function of our brains itself, we can do things like be more aware, to regulate, to self-assess, and then to make a decision that's good for us. And not only good for us, but when we're working with others, we have to be very mindful and cautious of the things that we're presenting to other people. Alex, we were talking about this just before we got on how, and I see you smiling. I know there's a thought formulating there, but I want to share. So just as a summary of the little activity that we just did here, and I'll put some resources in the chat. And don't worry about scientific terminology. Okay, metacognition is just a very fancy way of saying, what are you thinking about in the moment that you're thinking it? What are you feeling in the moment that you're feeling it? What is your body doing? And when you can tap into those sensations, when we train ourselves, when we learn to do these, it's amazing how much better we can serve ourselves and those around us. Alex, I'll throw over to you.
Yeah, so what I'm thinking is that there are so many ways that this is already in our lives, but it's almost like we're overlooking the opportunity to maximize this. So if we think about many people have talking therapies for all kinds of human needs, let's put it that way, and they're shown to be very effective. More effective in most cases than medication, for example. So people may have counseling, and a particular form of counseling, cognitive behavioral therapy, is exactly this, being able to tap into and attend to what you're actually thinking about in the moment. And what I find really striking with this approach around metacognition and being able to realize in the moment is that it doesn't take us very long. Our brains are so quick. Once we can do it instantly. It's amazing. So when you suddenly realize that there is something that you do in a reflective conversation, often through dialogue with somebody else, it really doesn't take long for you, once you kind of come out of that conversation and go about your life, for you to go, oh, wow, I'm doing that thing again. Oh, it just happened. I can't believe I just spoke about that this morning. And it's that moment of realization that we then have the power and the control to change how we respond to that. And it is so liberating and empowering to recognize that, yes, as a human, we automatically do these things and subconsciously do these things. But when we consciously bring them to our attention is when we can make a difference to how we live our lives. And that, I think, is the most liberating thing for people when they are really struggling and using things like cognitive behavioral therapy to support themselves. But what I'm suggesting here is that that doesn't just need to be for people who have very significant needs. That can be something that we can apply to our entire life. And I think that's the piece that I really love about applying psychology in this way into organizations, because so many people spend so much time at work. This is like the perfect place to be testing who we are as humans and learning more about those human skills, because we have the biggest opportunity to influence ourselves and other people around us, not just our families and our own personal networks, but loads of people that we come into contact with. And it's that beauty of being able to recognize in the moment, but the quickness of our brain to learn that we can make a difference is instant. So, that's why I struggle with kind of learning pathways that take maybe 12 months or 36 months. It's like, no, we can learn something in a moment, not even a day. Our learning trajectory, we can learn to do a million things within a week. We don't need to have things staggered out. We can take it at our own pace and our own ability to learn how to do those things. Hence, probably the link to my trouble with relaxing is that I don't enjoy relaxing, which is why I struggle with it, because there's always something new to learn and something new to do. And I love innovation. And for me, that's my buzz, not the kind of relaxing piece. So, it's about recognizing our capability as humans, and almost the more we learn about what we're capable of doing with our brains as human beings, the more fantastic we feel, because we can feel a greater impact on not only our lives, but the lives of others around us and our planet too. And we are more socially and morally conscious now than ever before. and we know that we can actually impact change in loads of new and different ways. And embracing these new ways of working, once we know as a human what we're capable of, means that actually I guess that dreaming piece, David, to a certain extent, is about being able to recognize that we can dream bigger, we can do much more than potentially maybe we'd imagined previously. Our capabilities are infinite, and that's also what makes us human, is our ability to do wonderful, great things.
I would say also that these core human skills are the things that are the foundational. They're the things that allow us to go and have more confidence in ourselves, a better understanding of ourselves. It also allows us to make more educated decisions as to where I want to be and who I want to be in the workplace. And that then informs perhaps where you would like to spend your time, because when you start piecing together your strengths and understanding of yourself, what your purpose is, what your own values are, and how you like to be respected and treated in the workplace, I think it gives you a very solid foundation in which to make decisions as to where you want to be spending your time. And it's where we spend a lot of time at work, and that is, I think, going to lead us on to the next part of our session, where we start to address the topic of the Great Resignation. And just prior to that, it's interesting as well, because we talk about the Great Resignation, and we all have responsibilities with teams and to our organizations that employ us. Talking about the Great Resignation feels like we've already missed the boat, because they've already left your organization by that point. And one of my colleagues in my team mentioned something called the Great Reassessment. And it strikes me that perhaps we should be trying to capture our audience and engaging with them at the point of the reassessment, because employees who have already come to the point of saying, right, I'm out, it's too late for us to help them. At the moment, though, we know that, I mean, you can look at, there's tons of numbers, but 60-something% of people don't want to be in their jobs. Another 50% need reskilling, but we've got no idea what their skills are today and where they need to go. Whichever way you cut it, and then if you look in the States, I mean, there's only 3% of non-white males want to go back into the workplace. So you have to wonder why that is. What was wrong with the workplace prior to the pandemic that only 3% want to go back? So on that note, I would argue that we have a responsibility to help people at the stage of reassessment. If we give them this training, this human skills, the ability to sense that this organization is looking out for me and they respect that I'm also reassessing my purpose and my role, then perhaps there's an opportunity for us to care for people and give them the skills that they need whilst they're still with us. And they're probably going to end up.
So let's talk about now and when I say we, I'm talking myself, a team of neuropsychologists, behavioral scientists, all the nerds, really. We had been tracking this, well, the lead up to the Great Resignation. We saw that this was happening. We foresaw it 6 months before it did. We projected that we were going to see a double in numbers by May of people leaving their jobs because of the additional stress and everything that just could not be managed. And we saw all roads leading to the managerial level, which again, we saw very high in North America. We saw a very high turnover at that level. Why is this happening? You know, we've spent the last little while here, and go ahead and throw your thoughts into the chat, but why is this actually happening? Is it happening because we've just decided that we're just too tired? Are we overworked? Are we over emotionally and cognitively drained because everything is going on? Was there something that we missed before? Did we not have the skills to manage any of this? Is this why this is happening? How do we actually, in your sort of perception of this? Now I see that Caleb also wrote in the chat, the great opportunity. Absolutely, Caleb. This is a massive opportunity. But I think we have to acknowledge, why is this happening? Because if we can't understand why it's happening, then we can't actually understand what we need to learn in order to really go forward to the opportunities. That's number one. Number two, when it comes to learning. Now, do we learn something in a moment? Do we learn something in a day? Do we learn something over time? How, when does the constructs of learning happen? There is going to be a podcast that's going to come out that I did with Go One and a colleague of mine. He's a cognitive neuroscientist, and we were talking about this. We're talking about the actual learning process in the brain. We're talking about encoding of memories, and that takes time. I think what you probably haven't had exposure to, and the only way I can demonstrate this for everybody, if you are watching on your screens right now, is that if you were to look at your hand, and if you took the palm of your hand and imagine that this was one gorgeous cell, just one circle in your brain, and if you put your fingers down, that cell starts off as just a circle. And as you're learning, when you're having a new experience, when you're creating new memory, these branches start to come out and they expand, and they're looking for the neighboring connectivity to the other side. They need to build, though. This is the part you don't get to see when it comes to learning. Your brain has to physically change. It has to grow. It has to manipulate. Some things actually need to die in there in order for things to grow again. And this is why when we talk about the skills, why is the Great Resignation happening? And I see a lot of things coming in the chat. It could be a number of things. We want to talk about stress, burnout, resilience, all of the things, and we can go into those areas. But when it comes to learning, this is the very important part that we need to understand, is that we are in a state right now where, yes, we do need to learn more of these human skills. If we try to rush that process, if we try to work against the operational system, which is doing that, which is allowing us to acquire that knowledge, those skills, those abilities, those behaviors, then we're not going to have the memory. We're not going to be able to transfer that. We're going to wind up in seminars, one and dones. We're going to wind up in 3-hour e-learnings. We're going to wind up in 4-hour half-day trainings that we feel really, really great about in the moment, but a week later we can't transfer the skill. So when it comes to what is it that we can actually learn, that's one thing. And I think that we can take that, and we've had this. I think it's sort of coming out in the conversation as we go on. But David and I asked a question on a previous webinar, and I said, what are the things that you want to learn about you as human? But the other side of things is we're working with people. We have to co-regulate with one another. We have to co-function with one another. What are the things that throughout your experiences when you're working with somebody in these organizations, you might have looked at someone or looked at a situation in a meeting and gone, ooh, we really need to learn that. So I invite you in the chat to sort of express that. And Alex and David, if you want to contribute to that thought of, we see these sort of standard, I don't want to say standard, but they've just become standardized words in marketing and resilience training and empathy. And I'm not saying that these aren't important to learn. They 100% are. We have to get to the underpinnings of what those are. Alex, human skills, fundamental human skills. What do you think?
Yeah, if people aren't ready to be able to learn, I've seen it time and time again. They'll take what they need from the learning, but in many circumstances, I've seen people use learning environments where they're set up to learn specific skills to just simply connect to other human beings in a way they've not been able to because they're so rushed, they're so focused, they're so isolated. And actually, they've just really enjoyed being able to go, oh, what do you think about that then? And the space and the time to just think, which is now dominated in such a weird way, not only by work, but by the world of marketing out there, as you said, that kind of overload of messages we are bombarded with every single day that detracts from our ability to just step back and go, whoa, no, that pause moment. And the skill to recognize that you need the space is really, really hard, particularly for people who care. So people who care more, it's almost like if you're compassionate and you care for others and you are empathetic, which are all fantastic skills to develop really great relationships, it can actually cause quite a detrimental effect on your own resilience because you want to please other people. We had pleasing people here in the chat before as one of the comments. But it can be exhausting being able to constantly please and support and help everyone else. When's the time left for me? And that time left for me is also the time left to recognize the learning that's required to be able to evolve to support others even better. But we can just be kind of, chasing our tail in terms of doing what we know, without that opportunity to create space and learn. And so a core piece and a core skill that then goes into certainly the work that we focus on with people is the time and space for dialogue. So we can plan a beautiful script, we can plan a beautiful skill development workshop, but if there aren't those big chunks for just talking about this, dialogue about this, yes, great questions really help, but also the space for other people to come up with their own questions and their own thinking, not everything being directed so that they're just constantly down there. I hear a lot about learning journeys. What's the learning journey and pathway we want to get people on? That's all great, and that's really helpful to reduce their cognitive capacity when they're, busy, that this is the learning journey. But at what point do people actually find their own learning journey that's based on who they are as a human? And I think that is almost forgotten. In organizations, we almost do the same in our empathetic way of trying to help people. We're over-parenting people. We're trying to tell people too much about what they need to learn and how they need to learn it. And we need to give people that option, the ability to choose where they go. I don't know if any of you guys had storybooks when you were a kid. I had this wonderful storybook given to me. I think I was about 7 or 8 when I was really kind of establishing who I was as a human on this planet. I think that happens a lot at 8. And it was one of those books where you could choose kind of, if you want to choose this character, you go to this page. And if you want to find out what happens to this character, you go to this page, and you could choose the story. And I remember at the time thinking the freedom of being able to flex the story to my liking and what I was interested in at the time was so fantastic. I read that book like a million times in lots of different ways. And I think that creativity, that innovation in the space of learning is so important to bring into our lives at work, because there is a lot of innovation happening in the education sector. I know there's a lot of boundaries and a lot of parameters that hold people back from bringing that through, but what we see there and how we help children learn needs to be brought through into our whole lives in terms of that feedback and ability to stop and pause and create space and find people's own kind of pathways through things. And I think those skills need to be very present in what's available now, so that people aren't pushed into those traditional routes, because we'll shut off, and it's just how much memory we can store for that one moment before we move on to the next thing. I've kind of gone on lots of different angles there. I don't know, David, if there's anything you want to pick up on.
Yes, I think I echo your thoughts, and the overwhelmingly, we've got the world's best. We've got all the world's content for all intents and purposes. We can have all the world's digital content in one place. We also know what its outcomes are. We know who it's meant for. We know what it's good, what it's supposed to do, and we can also deliver it wherever anyone needs it. So Slack, Viva, your LXP, your LMS, a text message, however you want it, you can have it. In reality, though, I really need some anxiety and stress courses, the very same stuff that I aggregate and deliver out as part of my role in Go One and working with you. The challenge is that when that gets assigned to me, it comes through as an email or it comes through as a notification. There's no email notification in the world that's going to make me take the anxiety training that I know I need, because it hasn't been delivered to me in the right way. And overwhelmingly, we're seeing that where you can create communities where people can go in and they know that the content is there, they self-discover, colleagues make recommendations, you share ideas, you unlock, you hear other people talking about things that you identify with, and you go, oh, that's what so this is brain fog. Like, I didn't know that was brain fog. I thought I was just being slow. I thought I was really losing my mind the last few months. And then you find out that, oh, hold on, that's got a name. And then I go on my own journey of discovery, searching brain fog. And that's when you get hooked into the learning pathways. So I completely agree with what you're saying. We need to have pathways, we need to make things available, but we also need to find a way to allow people to access it on their own terms and in their own time, in their own space.
There's so many things that I want to acknowledge in this absolutely phenomenal part of our conversation here. So I too, Alex, was a fan of the Choose Your Own Adventure books, and as I grew into my science, one of the most wonderful designs was built on a choose your own adventure. And I love scientific design. And I know that this is very new to our industry. Learning as a science is very, very new. You know, we see the word neuroscience and it's just like, it's sexy and it's like, ooh, yes, let's talk about the brain. But we're not talking about, you know, you picked up a, you know, Brains for Dummies book and all of a sudden you know everything. This is decades and hundreds of years of scientific evidence and research. And novelty. I want to talk about novelty for a moment, because I've seen in the chat, there was questions about behaviors, there was questions about motivation. You know, what's really interesting, and most of you have heard about dopamine, right? Dopamine is that you know it as that, it makes you feel good, you know, it's the rewards, it's the actual essence of dopamine though, is motivation. And it is so important, not only to our learning. There was somebody in the chat who asked something about necessity. Yes, we learn out of necessity, but we learn because we are motivated to do so. And there is actual neurochemistry that is going to support that. So when you think of how do we increase the motivation, well, here's a few tips. Number one is the brain loves novelty, loves it. It wants to chase the curiosity. So once we are stimulated, once we have that dopamine running through our systems, now it's a matter of how do we take that amazing feeling about the things that we want to learn and chase that curiosity and make it novel. So you asked me what one of, like, you know, if I could go back and I, you know, just out of now that of this conversation, I'm like, I actually want to go back and I want to do a design again. I want to do another choose your own adventure design. This is one of my favorite things to do. I know people, I'm a big nerd when it comes to learning and science and all of this, but you know, how do we help people learn through tapping into things like the dopaminergic systems? How do we tap into things like novelty? How do we stimulate that? How do we recognize when we're in the moments and then use that in our journeys? But then we can also understand how other people are going through theirs as well. Learning takes time. Learning takes time. Memory takes time. It doesn't happen as fast as we want it to. I saw some people in the chats, there was some acknowledgement on the expectations of the true human process versus, oh, but our board needs those results. Oh, but we have to hit our compliance numbers. There is a discrepancy between the expectations in organizations on how quickly we can learn and how fast that we can transfer that. Now, I know that we're coming to the top of the hour here, and I really, you know, I think we are going to do a little bit of an after party, but I kind of want to just take a look at everything that we've done, a significant amount of things that we've done in this past hour, because I don't want you to leave here feeling that we've just had a conversation. And I could even ask you, and remember, I'll never tell you that you learned anything, you didn't. But I do hope that we've set you on a curiosity, a pathway of curiosity. And when we look at where the beginning of our conversation started, when we asked, you know, what are those human things? What are we talking about when we identify what it is to be a human? You were using your cognitive efforts there to go into a state where you were thinking about what you were thinking about. Go back there, revisit that. Focus. The tips and the practices that you got when it came to focus throughout this time, and I will say it endlessly, is remember, constantly ask yourself, what am I giving my attention to? What am I giving my attention to? That's how we train ourselves to be into the present moment. Our awareness of our thinking, of our thought, of our feeling, how our bodies are doing. And that will guide you to say, I can go forward with this conversation, or maybe I need to not go into that meeting. That's how we learn to work with one another in humanizing the workplace. Alex is sharing with, I think Alex might have some resources to share with you as well. What I would encourage you to do as well. Now, we didn't get to, I did want to go through stress and burnout. I'm going to do a really high level summary. Stress is the pathway to burnout. Once you've gotten to burnout, you've already reached the limitations of your coping mechanisms. Burnout is not having enough. Stress is having too much. Stress is identified with hyperactivity. Burnout is pretty much. Now, I don't have the slides, but if you can visualize this, it's a great, strong visualization. If you can picture stress, if you've seen the movie The Lord of the Rings, if you can picture stress as Gollum, this like, my precious. And then on the other side, burnout being, oh gosh, I'm going to forget his name, Frodo, the Hobbit. at the end when he's like holding, he wants to get to the top of that mountain to throw that damn ring into it, but he just can't. That, yeah, on my slides it says take the ring or whatever. I don't care, take the ring. Stress is going to lead to burnout. And we only have so many coping mechanisms in our arsenal. And this is why we circle back to this entire conversation of what can we learn? How can we learn these beautiful human skills, which will help us to expand our mechanisms to be able to cope, to be able to learn, and to be able to serve one another with better intention. And I'll close out there, and I'm going to pass over to David and Alex for their final thoughts.
Thank you, Lauren. We are all very keen to provide you some inspiration and to serve the curiosity. And on that note, we are going to hang around for another 5 to 10 minutes. We're calling it an after party. It means that the recording shall be stopped and you shall have unrestricted access to Alex and Lauren to ask them anything that you'd like to ask them, perhaps with the recording feature off. And on the subject of resources and serving our curiosity, I'm going to hand over to Alex, who has very kindly put together a resource, and she's going to take us through it just now.
And thank you, Lauren. The stress and burnout thing is just, I love that analogy. That's going to stay with me today for sure. I'm going to use it and share it with someone else. And that's often my commitment, because I quite like to make action quite quickly. I'm a really action-oriented person, and I know lots of people are and lots of people aren't. But that's why I wanted to bring this kind of checklist, give a tool, something people can take away if they want, interested to learn a bit more and use it. Certainly in the learning world, reflective learning for me is very powerful. We've done a lot of reflection here, and I think Chris has mentioned it here too. Reflection time gives us that space to recognize what it is we need, to recognize how much we've grown, to see what the evolution possibilities are. And so we're sharing just a checklist, and it's about human leadership, which is applicable to everybody, not just people, managers. But it's really just a bunch of questions. When you get a moment, print it off and go and sit in a really nice space, somewhere you like being, and just ask yourself those questions, looking back on your own leadership of your life and of how you are with other people, and consider what reflections you have and how can you answer those questions. It's a really simple tool, just a question set to help you really reflect and think back about who you are as a human leader. So I hope that's an interesting reflection tool. Have a look for that, please. And also the notions, there's an awful lot more there around how people can develop in terms of positive development through stress and burnout. Lots of people approach burnout through doing things they love doing, and actually not taking that time to recognize that they're loving it too much. So there's that recognition around, matching our skill, matching our challenge level, and really another good kind of reflection question maybe to bear in mind if you're going into any one-to-ones today, any sessions, any meetings, is just simply ask people not only how they are, but also thinking back to a time when they were completely absorbed in something and they lost track of time. Even just remembering an event where you were completely absorbed and in flow can actually give you the same emotional memory and positivity and a big boost that can help you in some of those more stressful times, but also a great reflection in on what it is you were doing that allowed you to get into a state where things feel natural, easy, enjoyable, and you're at your best. So remember, we are all at our best when we are our human selves. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really happy to move into the after party. I think we're 1 minute past 11. We can stop